The video call froze for a moment before my father's face reappeared, his expression triumphant in that particular way that meant he'd made another executive decision about my life. Behind him I could see the familiar living room of my childhood home, where my parents had moved back after Dad's third failed business venture. "Sarah, we need to talk," he announced, adjusting his reading glasses with the authority of someone who'd never quite accepted that his youngest daughter had surpassed him professionally. "Your mother and I have made a practical decision about that house of yours." I minimized the classified briefing document I'd been reviewing and gave him my full attention. At 28 I'd learned to brace myself whenever Dad used that tone. "What about my house?" "Well, you're gallivanting around the world constantly, never home," he continued, gesturing dismissively. "That beautiful property sitting empty is just wasteful. So we've found responsible tenants. A lovely young family with 2 children. They're paying excellent rent." The words hit me like ice water. "You did what?" My mother appeared beside him, beaming. "Oh honey, your father was so clever. The Hendersons are paying $2,200 a month. Much better than letting it sit vacant while you're off on another one of your assignments." "Dad, that's my house. You can't just—" "We have your spare key," he interrupted, puffing up with pride. "And we're your emergency contacts. Legally, we had every right to make this decision." The property was sitting empty for months. Through the screen, I heard my sister Melissa's voice from the kitchen. "Finally, someone's making practical decisions around here." She appeared in frame, designer coffee cup in hand. "Sarah's never home anyway. At least now the house is generating income instead of just sitting there like some monument to her wanderlust." My brother-in-law Derek nodded approvingly from his spot on the couch. "Smart thinking, Dad. Sarah's always been too idealistic about money. This is how you build real wealth." "The lease is ironclad," Dad continued, clearly pleased with himself. 12 months, non-breakable. The Hendersons already moved in their furniture. They're thrilled to have such a stable arrangement. I felt that familiar knot in my stomach, the one that formed whenever my family made assumptions about my life. They saw my frequent travel as aimless wandering, my career as some vague government job that kept me away from real responsibilities. "You should be thanking us," Melissa added, settling beside Mom. "We're the ones handling the practical side while you're off playing whatever game it is you play for work. The State Department, right? Filing papers or something." "International Relations Consulting," I corrected quietly as I had dozens of times before. Derek snorted. "Fancy words for travel blogger." "The point is," Dad steamrolled ahead, "we've solved your housing problem. The rent money is going into your old savings account, the one we opened for you in high school. We're managing it responsibly." My mother patted his arm proudly. "Your father spent weeks vetting these tenants. Background checks, references, employment verification. They're much more reliable than whatever temporary arrangement you might have made." "I didn't need a temporary arrangement. I live there." "Sarah," Melissa's voice carried that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. "You haven't been home for more than a week at a time in 2 years. These people have children. They need stability. You need to start thinking about others for once." The family meeting continued around me, each member adding their approval of Dad's initiative. My Uncle Bob called it entrepreneurial thinking. Cousin Janet praised the family for looking out for Sarah's financial future. Even my elderly grandmother, speaking through speakerphone from her retirement community, applauded Dad's sensible management. "We've already deposited the first month's rent and security deposit," Dad announced with finality. "This is happening, Sarah. It's time you learned about real-world responsibility." After ending the call, I sat in my temporary office at the embassy, staring at the diplomatic seal on my computer screen. My family had no idea that my consulting work involved coordinating international security protocols, or that my frequent travel included classified briefings with foreign ministers and defense officials. They definitely didn't know that my house, the one they just illegally leased, was registered with the State Department as a designated safe house for diplomatic personnel. I opened my secure communication system and typed a brief message to the Embassy Housing Division. Hold up. The next morning brought a flurry of family text messages celebrating Dad's brilliant real estate move. Melissa had already started planning how to invest my rental income in something more stable than my flighty lifestyle choices. Family group chat. Dad, Hendersons are settled in beautifully. Rent deposited. This is how you build wealth. Mom, the children are so well behaved. Much better use of the space. Melissa, finally, some responsible decision making. We should manage more of Sarah's assets. Derek, she clearly can't handle adult responsibilities on her own. I screenshot the conversation and forwarded it to my supervisor, Ambassador Patricia Chin, with a simple note. Family situation escalating. Request immediate diplomatic protection protocols. Her response came within minutes. Authorization granted. Legal team activated. Document everything. Meanwhile, the family group chat continued its celebration. Uncle Bob had joined to congratulate Dad on his business acumen. Cousin Janet suggested they look into managing other aspects of my neglected finances. Even my grandmother had somehow figured out how to post emoji, tiny house symbols and dollar signs flooding the chat. Derek, maybe we should check on her other investments too. Someone needs to look out for her interests. Melissa, I've always said Sarah needed better financial guidance. This proves it. Dad, I'm considering setting up a trust. Clearly, she can't manage property responsibly. That afternoon, I received a call from the Hendersons themselves. Mrs. Henderson sounded apologetic but confused. Miss Chin. Oh, I'm sorry, the lease says Sarah Morgan. We're a bit concerned about the situation. Your parents mentioned you'd agreed to the arrangement, but some neighbors have been asking strange questions about government vehicles in the driveway. Government vehicles. The house had been under periodic surveillance as part of my security clearance maintenance. My neighbors, mostly retired government employees themselves, recognized federal plates. Mrs. Henderson, I said carefully, I need to ask you a direct question. Did my parents show you any written authorization from me for this lease? But they said they were your emergency contacts and power of attorney. We verified their identity with photo ID and they knew so much about the house. Your father explained that you were overseas and had asked them to handle the rental. I see. And you've already moved in. Yesterday. We gave notice on our apartment, moved our furniture. Ms. Morgan, is there a problem? We have children and moving again would be. I felt genuinely sorry for the Hendersons, but the legal reality was stark. Mrs. Henderson, I'm afraid you may have been misled about my parents' authority in this situation. I'll have someone contact you today with more information. After hanging up, I pulled up the diplomatic registry filing I'd completed when I first purchased the house. The property was listed as a secondary residence for State Department personnel, complete with security classifications and jurisdictional protections. My phone buzzed with another family update. Dad, spoke to the Hendersons today. Lovely people. They're already talking about renewing for another year. Melissa, see? This is what happens when adults make decisions. Stability and profit. Mom, the children are settling into the local school district. It's nice to see the house being a real home again. That evening, I attended the weekly embassy security briefing. Ambassador Chin reviewed my situation with the legal attaché. The property registry is clear. Legal attaché Morrison confirmed. Diplomatic personnel housing filed with appropriate protections. Unauthorized occupancy of classified residential space is a federal matter. Timeline for resolution? Ambassador Chin asked. 48 hours for full diplomatic protection notice. Local law enforcement coordination within 24 hours. The unauthorized lease agreement is void under federal housing regulations. I thought about the Hendersons' children, probably unpacking toys in bedrooms that had been subject to security sweeps just months earlier. My family had created a legal nightmare that would affect innocent people, all because they'd never bothered to understand what I actually did for a living. That night, Derek posted on social media about Dad's brilliant investment strategy, tagging several family members and praising the practical thinking that Sarah obviously couldn't handle herself. The post gained dozens of likes from relatives and family friends, all congratulating Dad on his responsible management of my neglected assets. Dad, tomorrow, I'm meeting with a financial advisor about expanding our management of Sarah's portfolio. Melissa, about time someone took charge of her future. I saved screenshots of every message, every social media post, every documented instance of my family celebrating their illegal occupation of diplomatic property. Then I drafted my final message to the Embassy Housing Division. Request immediate activation of diplomatic protection protocols. Family situation requires full legal intervention. The response came with official State Department letterhead. Diplomatic protection notice scheduled for delivery tomorrow 0800 hours. Federal jurisdiction established. Local law enforcement coordinated. Revelation. At exactly 8 o'clock the next morning, my phone exploded with panicked calls from my parents. Sarah. Dad's voice was shrill, barely controlled. There are federal agents at your house. They have some kind of warrant. Not a warrant, Dad. A diplomatic protection notice. What are you talking about? This is about the rental. We have rights. Dad, take a breath. Put me on speaker. I heard him fumbling with the phone, then Mom's voice. Sarah, honey, there's been some terrible mistake. These men say the house is government property. Not government property, Mom. Diplomatic personnel housing. It's registered with the State Department as a classified residential facility. Dead silence. I don't understand, Melissa's voice smaller now. You work for the State Department filing papers. I coordinate international security protocols for diplomatic missions. The house is registered as a safe house for foreign ministry personnel. What you call my wandering around the world is classified government travel. Derek's voice cracked through the speaker. That's not possible. You never said anything about classified work. Because it's classified, Derek. I can't discuss operational details with unauthorized personnel. Dad found his voice again. But the lease. We vetted these people. This is a legal rental arrangement. Dad, you leased classified diplomatic property to unauthorized civilians. The Hendersons are lovely people, but they're now occupying a federally protected residence without clearance. This is a federal crime. Federal crime? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Unauthorized access to diplomatic facilities. Fraudulent representation of property authority. Potential espionage concerns due to civilian occupation of classified space. Through the phone, I heard official voices in the background. Agent Morrison introducing himself, explaining the situation to the Hendersons, coordinating their emergency relocation assistance. Sarah, Dad's voice was pleading now. We didn't know. You have to tell them we didn't know. I have screenshots of 2 days of family group chats celebrating your brilliant real estate management and discussing plans to take over more of my financial assets. You documented your own criminal conspiracy. This isn't real, Melissa whispered. Sarah can't be. She's never even had a real job. Agent Morrison, I said, knowing he could hear me through the phone, could you please verify my diplomatic status for my family? Morrison's voice came clearly through the speaker. Ms. Morgan holds top-secret diplomatic clearance as Senior Coordination Specialist for International Security Protocols. Her residential property has been under federal protection since 2019. Unauthorized occupation of her registered safe house constitutes violation of multiple federal statutes. But the rental income. Dad started. Dad, you deposited federal housing allowance supplements into an unauthorized account. That's misappropriation of government funds. Uncle Bob's voice suddenly joined from somewhere in the room. Sarah, surely family should have known about this kind of job. Uncle Bob, my security clearance specifically prohibits disclosure of operational details to unauthorized persons, including family members. Agent Morrison's voice returned. Mr. Morgan, we need to discuss the federal investigation into unauthorized property management and potential conspiracy charges. You and your family members need to come to the federal building this afternoon. The phone went quiet except for the sound of Mom crying. The Hendersons? I asked. Emergency relocation assistance approved, Morrison confirmed. State Department Housing Division is coordinating temporary accommodations. No charges against them. Clear case of fraudulent misrepresentation by unauthorized parties. Resolution. 6 weeks later, I sat in my reclaimed living room, reading the final legal settlement documents. The federal investigation had moved swiftly once the scope of my family's unauthorized actions became clear. Dad faced federal charges for fraudulent property management and misappropriation of government funds. His sentencing hearing was scheduled for next month, with his lawyer negotiating a plea agreement that would likely result in federal probation and substantial financial penalties. Melissa had lost her job at the marketing firm after the federal investigation revealed her social media posts celebrating the illegal property management. Derek's construction company lost its government contracting license when his association with the case triggered a security review. Mom's tearful apologies came through voicemails I couldn't bring myself to return. She'd spent weeks calling the State Department, trying to explain that they just didn't understand my career, only to be politely redirected to the legal department. The family group chat had gone silent after Uncle Bob's employer, a defense contractor, suspended him pending a security clearance review triggered by his involvement in the federal case. The Hendersons had sent a beautiful thank you card from their new State Department-assisted housing, along with photos of their children settling into a better school district. They'd also provided sworn statements about my parents' misrepresentation, further supporting the federal case. Ambassador Chin knocked on my door that evening, carrying a bottle of wine and an official commendation letter. "State Department thanks you for maintaining operational security even under family pressure," she said, settling into my reclaimed living room. "Though I suspect the next family gathering might be awkward." I laughed, pouring wine into glasses that had been packed away for weeks while strangers lived in my dining room. "There won't be any family gatherings, Patricia. Not for a long time. Any regrets?" I thought about it, looking around the space I'd worked so hard to secure and maintain. The house where I briefed foreign ministers on secure video calls, where I stored classified documents in a hidden safe, where I'd built a life my family never bothered to understand or respect. No regrets. They made their choice when they decided I was too irresponsible to manage my own life. They just never thought to check whether I might know something they didn't. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Morgan, this is Derek. Please call me. We need to discuss this reasonably." I deleted it without responding. Some boundaries once crossed don't get restored with apologies. My family had gambled my career, my security clearance, and my classified residential status for rental income they thought I was too incompetent to generate myself. They'd lost everything trying to manage assets they never should have touched, in a life they never bothered to understand. The diplomatic protection notice still hung framed by my front door, a reminder that some mistakes have consequences that extend far beyond family dinner table politics.